you probably can see that my scenery, my background scenery is a little bit different. I am actually in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Oh,
Yes, and Zane and I drove up here. It was like 4 hours, and we have this little crazy, adorable house right on the Cane River, and literally like 3/4 of the house is over the water. And I mean, of course, it's hot and humid, but the mornings are just gorgeous. There's a little boat that we can take out, and we've been doing that, and just just getting him away a little bit before school starts. So it's been it's a beautiful little historic town, one of the oldest towns in Louisiana. So there's really a lot of history and really good food and really sweet people. So, so it's nice. And I've done some watercolors that I will show you later of this view, because that's, all around this little house are these views, and I just sit on the deck with a glass of wine and just paint and enjoy the sound of the crickets. So it's been nice. So let me see if we have any more people joining. Let's see.
And really,
Andre.
Noelle,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean.
Hi. Okay. So Melissa wants to say something, I guess.
Yes, just quickly. First of all, hello everyone. Nice to see you all. Just wanted to reiterate for those who are just joining us or who have been joining us for a while, if you need any help with anything technology related, feel free to contact me or Justin ahead of class, so that once we get into the class, we can focus all on the artwork and don't have to worry about the technology, hopefully. I know sometimes things come up that we can't control, but here and happy to help you if you need it.
That's great. Because also most likely we can't help from the class. So, I mean, there's nothing that neither Melissa or Justin or I can do during class time. So, but yeah, if you have any questions for any of us, just let us know before class and of course after class. So I'm super excited about our subject today. I know some of you have actually been to Petra, and it is, I think unless you actually visit Petra, it's hard to say in words what a magnificent sight it is. So you're walking through this almost like cave, like this narrow alleyway, and it's really dark, and it's this dark, the rocks themselves, the formation is not dark, but because it's almost like a cave. So you're walking in this darkness, or sometimes you could be on a horse, and then as you approach the monument, you get this shock of pink that literally is blinding in the most amazing way. And it's this city that was literally carved in stone, and it is completely intact. It's very large. Typically in the pictures, it was hard to find a picture that didn't have camels or people, just because I did not want them to be a distraction. And you can see how small everything looks. It's huge. There's other areas behind it, and just the whole region is just these purple and pink rocks that are just magnificent. So I actually did my my bachelor's degree in Jordan, and Petra was one of the places that I would just go to very often. It was 4 hours away, but that's the only time that I ever wanted to camp in my life. And you just go there, and I would just paint all day. It's just so gorgeous. And for some of you that were probably looking at the picture thinking, oh, this looks complicated, it really isn't. The very first thing I want to talk about is the type of painting that we're going to be doing today. It is called the frame within a frame. So what we have, typically you will have your scene, your important stuff is in the foreground, and then the background is kind of just, adding to it. In this one, we have the opposite, where what is in the front of the picture is kind of just framing what we actually want to be focusing on and seeing, which is called the Treasury, which is that part where you actually see the building and how it's carved out of stone. So we do have these two rock formations that are framing that picture. And our color scheme is going to be very limited. So that's always really fun, because even if your colors bleed into each other a little bit, it's still going to work, because we're dealing basically with a painting that is every shade of pink, every shade of orange to red to some purples in the cool area, in the cooler areas. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the color palette that we're going to be working within. Realize we all might have just a different setup in our watercolors, but basically, you know, red is red, blue is blue, and green is green. But sometimes you just have to tweak the amounts to get the color that you want. And in the end, your eye is the one that you need to trust. Nobody can tell you what percentage to put. You just have to keep working it until you get the color right. It's always a good idea to have kind of just a piece of paper next to you to mix your colors beforehand. So Melissa, if we can go to, okay. So what we have here is, oops, okay, it's a very tiny place, so I'm like bumping into things. Okay, so I started one just to kind of show you how things would start looking once you have some form, because in the beginning it's kind of hard to see what we are getting. It will look shapeless for a little bit. So what you can see is basically we have three parts. So we have the darker rock on the side, the lighter one that has a lot of yellows and oranges, and then we're saving our best pinks for the middle, which is our actual focus subject. Okay, so this is not finished. It would need, I would say, maybe another hour or so just to start getting some detail in here. This would also be a really nice subject to add an ink pen later on if you want to just give some detail. And I kind of would just put it in this part because that's your focus. So I'm going to show you what I did that leads to this. So I have another one that I kind of roughly started just to show you. So what we have, and I think this is upside down. Yes, okay. Okay, so this clearly shows you the three parts, okay? So we've got our darker rock, and in the picture, it looks really dark. I tried to lighten it a little bit to edit it, but it lightened everything else, so I thought we'll leave it, and you can just use your imagination just to go with lighter colors, so it's not like a visual block. So we've got our three sections. So what I did on both the rocks is I started with a wet on wet technique, and the wet on wet technique is when you wet the paper first and then you put in your colors and you just let them play. In the middle part, which is our focal area, I actually started it with just a pale yellow. And the reason I did the yellow is I wanted this area to glow. And the color that glows the most is going to be a yellow. I didn't put a pink because pink might have a little bit of blue in it. I will add my pinks later, but this is going to be my base. And that's kind of similar to when we made the goldfish. We gave it that kind of that bright golden, light golden ground, and it will help kind of make everything just sparkle a little bit more. So we are going to start. So I am going to show you the colors we're going to kind of make. And I do have my lovely dollar store palette over here. And I have my colors. So again, you know, I probably might have more varieties, and, you know, I've got like 3 yellows or whatever, but, you know, all you need is one color of each. So the basic colors that we're going to be working with are going to be a red, a green, a yellow, an orange, a brown, purple, and see that purple looks really dark. Sometimes you just have to try out your sets first to see what color is what. And possibly a little bit of blue. Okay, but of course our main colors are going to be the warm colors, the goldens, the reds, the oranges, and so forth. So I'm going to show you the combinations that we're going to do for this, and I'm going to got my brushes over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some red. I'm putting it here. If you don't have that, just use the side of your palette. So I'm just getting a nice red. Let's see how that looks. So that's kind of a pinkish red. If I want it to be a little bit more orangey, I can add some yellow to it. Oops. Shedding. Okay, so you can see that's making it a little bit more orange. So I talked about, so we know we're going to use that. We're going to use goldens. I do have one of my favorite pinks over here on this side that's not in this set. That's kind of is really bright, but any like red will give you a pink with enough water. Okay, just orange, got some browns, just kind of showing you the range that we're going to work with. So then I mentioned the green and the purple. So what the greens and the purples are going to do is they are going to cool off some of these warm tones. So the thing that happens if you have a painting that is all just warm colors like this, it's going to look flat. When you contrast it with some cooler colors, and that's what that green is going to do, and that purple, you're going to get a lot more dimension to your painting. So one of the ways we're going to be using the green is going to, so I'm going to take some green from over here. I'm just going to put it to the side so you can see it. I'm going to show you what happens when I put a little bit of red. Okay, so I still have some connection to the red, but it's giving me a much more muted color. See that? And this will be a really beautiful color. See, I mean, you don't see the green at all, but what the green does, it tones down that red and makes it look like it's far away, or like it's in the background, or it's in a shaded area. And the purple will also do the same thing. So let's take a little bit of purple. I'm gonna put it over here. The purple that I have in here is a really strong one, so I will always feel that I have to mute it down. I'm gonna take a little bit of red. A little bit more. So see, I'm getting a more muted, so I'm gonna put it next to that one. You don't really see the purple that much. Also, the purple could work nicely with, here's some purple. You know, try it with different combinations. Try it with some brown. And see, this is also going to be a really nice color to use. This actually, and these three would be great colors to work on the side, on the right rock that has all the dark colors. Okay, so these are kind of the combinations we're going to be working with. I mentioned blue. I'm going to put a little bit of blue over here. And I just feel that some areas might benefit from having that blue if you feel the area is too bright. So we're going to kind of play around with them and see how we're going to use them. Okay, so now we're going to start. So for the wet on wet, if you've never done this before, basically what we're going to do is we're going to wet the paper. So you want to wet it to where it's wet but not puddles. What I like to do so I can see the area that I'm working on is I just take any color that's in here or color close to what I'm going to be working with. See, I'm just taking some of this color that I blended and I'm going to paint in. See, this is going to be the rock on the right. And again, you know, these are all different angles. The shape doesn't have to be exact, okay? So now I know, so I'm just gonna put water. It's slightly tinted like really, really weak tea. We don't want much color yet because we're gonna be adding the colors. So your paper should start to glisten a little bit. If it's too wet, what you can do is just take a paper towel or a tissue and just pick some of it up. Now comes the fun part. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these dark colors that we talked about and we're just gonna put them in here and they're gonna start, you know, kind of dancing together. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take red. I'm just gonna put it in. See how it's starting to bleed out? I'm gonna take a little bit of green on top of it. You see how they're starting to play around. A little bit more green. Don't be scared of the green. Put some red. I'm gonna take some brown. You might have more than one brown in your set, either one. And if any color looks too strong, just go ahead and cover it with another color. I've got this darker red here. I'm gonna take a little bit of purple. See, that purple is, woo, that is a strong purple. I'm gonna put red over it to kind of balance it out. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna spread these colors around. It's gonna look different when it dries. And most likely, we're gonna have to go back and darken this once we start building our picture. Okay. They don't have to be blended all the way because they're still gonna move around a little bit with just fixing the shape a little bit. So they're still gonna blend around a little bit more. Okay, so the left side has a little bit more of the golden colors. So what I'm going to do, again, we are going to start framing our area. So I'm just gonna tint my water a little bit. I'm taking just a little bit of yellow or orange. And I'm going to start by so what you want to do at this point, you kind of want to just judge this distance. You can always pull the rocks closer if this area is too wide, okay? So this is, we know this is my area that we're going to be working on. So now I'm just going to add the water. So wet on wet is using wet paper with wet paint. And it's a really fun technique for backgrounds, for blending colors. If you have really big areas that you need to kind of, you know, activate, I think it works really well. Okay, so one thing that we can also do, now this one we're seeing a little bit more definition with the rock, and you can see they're almost like, you know, they almost have layers. So we can put the paint when we do in that direction a little bit, okay? So I'm going to start with a brown. Let's see, I'm going to just kind of just do some of those lines that I'm seeing. I'm gonna go with some orange. I'm gonna go with some yellow. And see, they're all kind of starting to play together. If something looks too strong like this, you can just add a little bit of brown to it. And again, when you're first building your painting, you know, nothing is final. The most important thing that will help get your painting going is having all your elements down, all the areas that you're gonna be working with, okay? So see, in just minutes, we already have the two sides of the rock, and this is kind of the frame that is framing that beautiful scene in the middle. Okay, so for the middle part, I talked about using a yellow, and if you have a bright yellow, like kind of like this one, like that lemon yellow, you can use that, but you want to use very little of it. What we're doing is basically we're just changing the color of that paper just so that we can get that glow. And on this one, I'm not going to do the wet on wet because this is an area that I'm going to need to be a little bit more controlled once I start putting the colors. And one thing I want you to do, I just want you to be careful with the edges over here when we put the yellow, and if they're, you know, super wet, what you can do, because I just don't want them to bleed into the yellow. I want to try to keep this area as bright as possible because it's my focal point and it's very, very bright. So I just patted this so that I don't get any run-ins. If you do, you can just, you know, fix it by picking it up with a paper towel or a tissue. Okay, so now I'm going to go to this yellow. You can see this is really bright. I mean, it's like, it's called a lemon yellow, but it's like acid yellow. What I'm going to do is I am going to, you know, you could even try a more golden one if you want, or both. I know it seems weird to put this yellow when you have a pink area, but you'll see it's gonna build up the colors really beautifully. So now you can see why I did not wanna have these wet edges here, because otherwise they would kind of blend in, and we don't want some of these darker colors getting in here. So this is wet paint on dry paper. Just make sure that you make yourself a nice big puddle of that yellow so you don't get any streaks or marks. Okay. Okay, so unless you have an area in the painting that is actually literally white, you know, we pretty much covered everything, because I don't feel that we really need to have anything white. I think the light yellows, and if you do want to make it lighter, you just take some water and see, you just kind of pick up the color and you will get a lighter area in there. Okay. So now what I want to do is, this is the area that I need for, I need to have it dry, because that's where I'm going to do detail. And this is kind of drying. I don't know, depending on where you are, it's really hot, so things are drying fast. But these two areas, you know, we can work on them while wet, because they don't have a lot of detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start structuring the rock a little bit more. Just give it a little bit more shape, a little bit more detail. And meanwhile, we're going to be waiting for this area to dry. Okay, so what I need to do is, you know, kind of revisit this shape a little bit. I think it could use just a little bit more, you know, contours, and definitely it can go darker than this, because I really want this area to stand up. So I'm going to take my brush, and I am going to go to, and again, you know, the size of the brush is whatever you're comfortable with. I've got my really strong purple, which is going to be too strong if I use it on its own. I'll take this orange red over here. I'm getting a nice color. So I'm starting to go a little bit darker. So every time you add color, you want to make sure that you check your reference so that you can get the lines and the areas. So while this is wet, right next to it, I'm going to take a little bit of green and I'm going to add it to that mix. See how it changed the color? I'm just going to put it next to it. They're still wet, so they're, you know, I'm not getting any lines. And I'm just going to add a little bit of water just to kind of introduce it into the rest of the scene. The one thing you don't want to do is have a dry brush, because then you will get like really kind of scratchy marks. Okay. All right. So this is giving it a little bit more depth. I'm going to move to the left where I have my deep browns, goldens. Okay. So I'm doing a little bit of brown with some yellow. I'm going to start giving it, if it feels too thick, just add a little bit of water to it. So again, whenever you add color, make sure that you shape. And I'm actually going to take some of the colors I did on the other side, because there's some areas that just have some darker little nooks, like over here. And then you can see some of them where you're getting the layers of the rock. You know, just have fun with it. You're working on something that's, you know, organic and just really, you know, flowing so smoothly. So just, you know, enjoy those little shapes. I'm going to add a little peak of orange just to, again, the orange is quite strong that I have in here. Maybe tone it down with some yellow. Okay. So again, when you're going over an area for the second time, because we had our first time, what you're doing is you're shaping, you're intensifying the color, you're bringing out detail. So you want to think that you're not just going over it, but that you're adding with every time that you're putting new paint. If you feel that it needs a little bit more definition, put a little bit of brown. I do have kind of a darker spot here. Okay, I think that's good for now. Also, if you want, I like to use, all the colors that I already have. And, you could even take some of that orange and maybe just sweep it in here. And just to connect the two parts to each other. Okay, so now we are going to go into what's called the treasury over here. And, I don't want you to have to worry about the carved details and everything. They will come as we start building. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to identify the areas that are shaded or the areas that have that intense glow, like up here, and then there's a glow here, and then we've got the very dark areas. And that's going to help start defining the structure itself. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with the bottom because to me that looks really clear. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and take some of the colors that I put here, but I'm going to use them a little bit lighter because I'm still drawing them out basically. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water, and I'm using a thinner brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this area here on the left, which is almost like a rectangle. So basically I'm just drawing it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some water just so that it doesn't have those rough edges. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to work on what's on top of it and next to it. So this line over here is leading to the first pillar. And it looks like to be about this wide. So again, you do not need to have a completely straight line. If you go light enough, you will be able to fix it. And again, I'm just using that mix of purple, green, and red, but with more water. And again, if you feel that you have too sharp of a line, just take some water and let it blend in with the rest. Okay, so this is leading. So I've got one pillar down. I'm going to go to the pillar next to it. And it's very helpful to look at this distance over here because it's telling me how wide it is. This is called the negative space, which is a space between two objects. Okay, so now I actually have the second pillar. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, color in this area with some darker tones. You can see the pinks really starting to kind of glow in there with the purple. So I'm going to use a little bit of my mix. And remember, detail builds gradually. So at first you're going to put your main color. Then I'm going to go ahead and just take some of this pink that I really like. If you don't have it, you can put some red. And I'm just going to put some, just have it dance around in there with the other colors. Okay, since I have that, I'm going to go over here. And there's a nice glow right here. I feel it needs a little bit of orange just to kind of, it's too strong, but I will blend it out with some water. Okay. And then on top of it, it has kind of this area. Okay, so I'm going to wait a little bit on this dark area here because this is kind of wet and I don't want my dark color to, to bleed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to a thinner brush and I am going to put the part up here. Again, I'm going to go back to this purple, green, red concoction over here. Very light. So this kind of like is now being my pencil color. Just add some water so it's not too strong. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in that line that I'm seeing. And again, you know, just do your line slowly, feather it. Doesn't have to be a continuous line. You can always go back and fix it later. Okay. And then it has another line on top of it. Okay. So since I have this dark color, I'm going to go and I'm just going to put it in here. See, the minute you put a dark color, look how much definition that gave it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, just the very little that I see over here, you see I already have part of the carvings on the pillar. Okay, I think this is now in more stable shape, so I'm going to go ahead and put my dark pathway. More room, I think, that's in there. There's also a little one up here. And again, you know, this is one of those paintings that's very forgiving because we are working in a very limited, you know, color scheme. So it's not like you're getting blue into orange or any, you know, foreign color that's in there. Okay, so I'm just going to build this structure a little bit leading up to the top area. Or if you want, you could start, you know, at the top and move down, whatever you're more comfortable doing. So again, you know, what you want to do is you want to look at angles. Okay, this was too strong. I'm just going to take some water. And then again, if you don't like your line at all, let's say this one was not where it should have been, just take some water and just kind of just pick it up and swipe it on your cup. Okay, but I'm going to actually use that. So I've got this line. And then I'm going to have that structure up here, which looks a little bit more complicated, but, you know, as long as you build it gradually. And then in the kind of in the middle here, we have this carving, this really pretty carving in here. Almost, I think it looks like it's standing on a pedestal. Okay, and then we do have this kind of is, if you see like the whole picture of it, these are almost like they're, you know, they're rounded, so they stick out and they're rounded. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just show that structure a little bit. Okay. Then here's where I have that really deep red and pink and orange color. So, you know, go ahead with some strong reds and oranges. They're really glowing, so, you know, I think you can go ahead and use quite heavy. So what I'm going to do with this color, okay, with the orange and the pink is I'm just going to dip my brush into it. I'm going to take some of it and I'm just going to start swiping it in some of the areas just to get a little bit more pink, because my goal was to make it glow, not to make it be yellow. So I'm slightly starting to introduce the pink in there. Again, I'm just taking some of that that's already there, or you can mix it in your palette. I'm just going to spread that up here a little bit. And see, I'm just getting a fainter version of that color. And you know what's interesting with Petra paintings, I think it just depends so much on the artist's eye. Like some of them are a lot more pink. Some of them seem to be a lot more orange. So I think it also is what your eye is picking up or what your eye wants to pick up. In my case, I always seem to see pink, even if there's no pink. Okay, good. It's starting to sneak in a little bit more pinks. Okay, so what you can see in this part is a lot of the shadows really have a deep glow to them. They're almost like the shadows are almost red. So I'm going to take some red, just plain red, smaller brush. Just with a thin brush and just with really small quantities and just sneak it in there. And if your eye's seeing a little detail, you can go ahead and put it in. Okay, so this area up here is going to need a little bit more of a darker color. So I'm actually going to go and take some brown. And put a little bit on some of those nooks. And see, now that you're starting to get form, you're going to be able to see how much you want to darken the two sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to even darken this a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the green. I'm going to show you. Got the green over here with some red. And again, I'm going over this. This is my third time. And again, also, this is a good time to shape and see what needs to be closer in to the picture. And you can see once we started darkening that area, our area in the middle is popping out a lot more. Sometimes, you'd be working on something and you think the color isn't right, and then, but you wait and put something next to it. I think Carol was working on a portrait and she thought the skin tone didn't look right. And then I told her, just put in the hair and then see if it looks right. And I think it kind of worked once she put in the hair. So sometimes, colors are, depending on, they look different by what's around them, just like, with people, you have, some people look better in different colors. There's some nice deep areas up here. Of course, to get this whole thing completed, it's not going to be done in our instructional hour. So I'm actually going to give this a little bit more detail, and you're going to see how it's going to start popping this area out. So I'm going to want to keep it kind of deep, so I'm using a little bit of red and orange, a little bit of brown. I think it needs a little bit of brown, more brown. Okay. And, for those of you that are, haven't been using watercolors for some time, the consistency comes with time. You start knowing, what looks, too heavy. At first, I think it's very typical. It's very common to, use a lot of paints, but what you need to remember is that watercolors are water first and color second. So basically you're working with colored waters. Our brain just kind of goes to paint that, you want to see the color right away on on the paper, when with watercolors, you're really more kind of building that color up. Okay, so you can see now this is really starting to highlight my, my subject in here. Okay, so I think now I can start detailing a little bit more. So, and again, yeah, I'm not telling you each color I'm using because I'm really working within the same color family. And this was just a little bit of red with some purple. And you know what you can do if you want to show part of the figurines and the sculptures, just kind of work around it, you know, just put in the shadows that are there and it will just start giving it a little bit more shape. This one looks like it has a lot of angles, but you know, if you just take it one at a time, it should be fine. Okay, can work a little bit over here. You see the shadow underneath here. They glow. It's like, it's just the most interesting shadows that you would see. Like they're almost like they're lit from under, which they are not, but. And put just a little bit of showing that detail, whatever it is you're seeing. Give the columns a little bit more pink. Too strong. Okay. I just noticed the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go back to the one that is a little bit more work, just to kind of show you how. So this is the one that I worked on earlier. Okay. And you can see on the bottom part, I have a little bit just more finished than what I was doing here. So all this yellow over here is going to start looking like this, because once you add the pinks to it, but also with this one, I think I would still go a little bit sharper on the rocks. I kind of like this one, on the one that I did during class. I think this one has too much pink. I just like that it's separating it a little bit. And you can see that I started putting in, just some of the really dark areas and some of the figurine. It's going to need a little bit more work, but typically what I try to do with these classes is, get you started on it and get you to see the process and how it's going to go. I think doing the detail is probably the easiest part, and that's the part that you can certainly do on your own. So I am going to go back, and if you want to show me your painting, you can. If you don't, that is totally fine as well. And let's see if you have any questions or comments or observations. Can we? Okay. Am I back on, Melissa? Everybody unmuted?
It's only letting me mute, not unmute. So if you want to unmute yourself, you should be able to. We can't hear you, Noelle. Hold on.
Okay, if you can unmute yourselves.
I don't know
There.
why it's not letting me unmute.
Yeah, it
everyone.
was saying that we couldn't unmute. Now,
Oh,
well,
now we can
Sharon
unmute.
is unmuted, so you're the only one. Everybody else seems to be muted.
Well, anyway, let me show you what I've done. It's not
Absolutely.
very detailed yet. And
Yeah,
I am going
it's
to
gonna
use
take a
some,
while.
and I'm going to put some black ink on it. But I think that my background area is too yellow. And I'm going to have to mute that somehow. Can you see what I've done?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's yellow. You know, that part is a little bit tricky. What I would do before going any further is I would just take water on a big brush and just scoop it out almost. So what you do, Sharon, to get, instead of rubbing with a tissue paper, just take your big brush with water and almost like think like you're mopping it. So take off, put the water, and then, you know, just kind of squeeze it off to the side.
Okay.
It does have a lot of yellow. Some yellows are really strong in those sets. Okay,
And-
anyone else?
Okay.
Carol, how did you do?
Okay.
Beautiful, very nice start. Yeah, I think your yellow is good. And you know, again, the yellow honestly is not something that you have to do. For me, it's something that's kind of lately just been drawn to, like, and I like to leave it sometimes. It gives, like, you know, like almost like a bounce back of color. So Susanna, can you unmute yourself? Susanna, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, perfect. Yes. Beautiful. Very nice. You're such an architect. Look at her building. This is fantastic. Phyllis?
We're gonna hold off showing it.
You're not showing? Okay. Marlene, let me see. Oh my God. Can you unmute yourself? Unmute. Just click the unmute, yeah. Yeah, there's a button, Marlene, that, like a red button, just do unmute. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Excellent. So what did you think?
Well, I loved it. I'm way behind what you're doing.
Well, it's your first time. These ladies have been working on this for 4 years. That's fantastic. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
I really am.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Yay! My mother-in-law's happy.
And the mother-in-law is happy.
Ah, she's wonderful. Edith, how are you? Want to show me? Lucia.
I just laid down the first layer. I was just mesmerized by watching you. The way I visualized it wasn't as much pink as yours, so
Okay.
I wanted to watch you and see what you're gonna do. And
Yeah, and you know, that's totally fine, because like I told you, if you look up paintings of Petra, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm always pink heavy. That's kind of, you know, how I paint. But you know, you don't have to. It does have a lot of orange and gold. And also the other thing, if you look at photographs, different times of the day, it's gonna be more pink or more, almost like more lavender. So it just depends. Andre?
As soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, she's going to use a lot of pink.
Yeah, not as much as I know, but it gives the illusion of pink. And I love your pink wall, by the way, Sharon.
Oh, thanks. It's been there for 30 years.
It's trending right now, so there you go.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, totally. Andre, how did you do?
No, I'm not proud of it.
You want to show me?
I don't.
Okay, you went off. So what I wanted to say is that honestly, this is one that is going to need to build. And to be even more honest, that's really good, Andre. I love it. It's a great start. To me, this is one of those projects that you have to explore a little bit with this subject. Like I feel that my second one, like the one I did during the demo, is probably better than the one I did by myself. It's because I'm revisiting it for the second time. It's all about figuring out, you know, the color balance. And I think this is really interesting, the observation about pink, that you thought I would be using a lot more pink than I did. So, and you know, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I felt that because maybe I'm thinking about that it looks pink, not that I actually did use pink, but it's pretty amazing because it has all those goldens and oranges. The minute you put pink, it seems very pink. So I think it's how the colors are contrasting. Lucia, yours was glaring. I couldn't really see the layers.
It's just
It's very light.
I don't know if you can see it.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
And I'm a slow worker, so I just when I think of
Slow, but
yeah,
fabulous.
I have to think about it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Does anyone have any? Oh, I wanted to show you. I've got this beautiful scenery around me, so it's been kind of fun to just paint. Where am I? So that's kind of what I've been seeing every morning.
Well, let me go to the view where you're bigger. I can't see it now. Oh dear.
Is it better that I put it here?
No, it's on the Petra. Oh, there it is. Hold it up in front of the Petra.
Okay, so I'll put it right here.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. Since the pandemic and just our lives being upside down, you know, I've been creating a lot, but I haven't been painting like personal paintings. And I think being here and just being in a little bit of nature really made me want to revisit landscapes and not just really going outside the box with them. And so doing this, like, you know, I was kind of playing around with the colors, you know, putting in pink in the water where you wouldn't expect it, putting in reds in the greens with the trees. So it was just really fun to play with it. And I took some really good pictures that I'll probably be working on and making bigger pieces, maybe doing some acrylics. So, I mean, the thing is, you know, sometimes if something isn't working, if you're working on something that, you know, is not quite happening, go to a different, you know, format of art, you know, knit, crochet, sew, design, you know, anything that feeds your soul is good because it's keeping your mind going, and it'll then go back and revisit whatever it is you were doing that was not working out. Sometimes we just need that little change a little bit. So, Melissa, were you able to do anything? No.
Not today. I was.
I know. She's like homeschooling and working, and bless your heart, with 2 little ones. That is not easy. So, does anyone have any fun? The elephants, by the way, that we did last week, they are fantastic. They are really, really cool. I hope you're saving everything for people to get art for presents this holiday season. That's what everybody's getting.
Noelle,
Yes.
I need to see your Petra one more time.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you do the columns by the door?
These?
Yes.
It's really just what we did in class, but, you know, starting to darken a little bit around them.
Okay.
You know, you just want to build it gradually. So basically, you don't really draw the columns. You draw and paint what's around them
In
on the
between.
sides, and it starts shaping them. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, observations, or anything else? Okay. Well, it was so good to see everyone. Susanna, were you saying something because you're muted? No? Okay. All right, everyone, take care.